What's up, everybody? It's Ree, or Rebel Inks Art, here with the second part of the 20 Style Challenge. In this video, we are, I did want to use the word we. My brain stopped me and told me that wasn't the word I wanted to use, but it was. We are taking a look at the artists, individual artists specifically, who inspired me while I was working on developing my own art style. And I'll just go ahead and say we're starting off this video with one of my all-time favorite artists, Boa Illustration. You can find their work at the blog of the same name, Boillustration. I don't want to spell it all out. All of the artists are going to have links in the description if you want to go check them out, and I would highly recommend it, because not only are these all really great artists, but they are artists that are very near and dear to my heart, and because of that, this is going to be a longer episode, just because I want to take the time to talk about these artists and how they inspired me. Boa's art was one I discovered when I was getting into the Yogs fandom. I've talked about this a little bit, but the Yogscast fandom was something I got into, and it was my first time having anybody really pay attention to my art other than like my small little group of friends. It was the first time I got feedback on my art and people enjoyed seeing what I created, and because of that, it was a very large period of growth for me. And it was during this time period that I came across and subsequently fell in love with Boa's art. Boa was a very big artist in the Yogscast fandom. Now they're doing, I use they, I don't know what their pronouns are. I'm sorry, I mispronounced that weird, so I'm just gonna go ahead and go with they for everybody I don't know. I feel like I should know that, but I know everybody's like been in a period of growth lately, and I don't want to misgender anybody, so Boa was really big in the Yogs fandom. I fell in love with their art. I spent a while emulating it, and I learned a lot of things that I wanted to do with my art from there. And I feel like a lot of the things I learned from how much I was in love with their art are still things that stick in my art style to this day. I know how they do eyes, so it's a really big inspiration to me. Although it was funny when I went to their blog to find reference for how to emulate this style again, I found that they changed the way they do eyes from when I had learned how to emulate it. And so it was just kind of this neat thing to see that the people who inspired me to grow are growing themselves. But if you like Harry Potter, or what are they doing? What's the basketball, or is it volleyball? It's one of those sports animes. I think it's Haikyuu. But they do a lot of anime stuff. They do a lot of Critical Role stuff. So if you're into D&D, they do a ton of fan art for that. And their art, like, even if you're not into those things, their art is so cute and well-rounded and adorable that, like, even though I'm not into the things that they're currently making content for, I still love looking at their art because it is just so, it's so pretty. I love their work so much. So yeah, I think Boa immediately is the one that came to mind as being a huge influence for when I was working on, teaching myself how to stylize art and what I wanted to do with my art. Moving on to the second person, I don't remember who it was, so give it just a moment. I should really pull up my reference. Heck. Oh, is this Glen Keane? This is Glen Keane, okay, there we go. So Glen Keane, for those of you who aren't familiar with him, he was like the Disney guy. He designed Tarzan and Rapunzel and Ariel, all that jazz. You know, that like classic Disney style. You're thinking of Glen Keane's work. He's a wonderful animator and character designer, and when I was younger, like I believe all budding artists wanted to work for Disney. I think everybody who has done art at some point wanted to work for Disney, and I wanted to specifically work as a character designer. And because of that, I spent a long time learning how to emulate Disney style, and in particular Glen Keane style. And while even if that wasn't something that I decided to stick with, I picked up a lot of really good techniques and habits from that. And I mean, even more than that, he's just really talented, and I really love his art style, those big expressive eyes. And there was a lot of these drawings that, or a lot of these styles that, like, trying to get back into them, it felt like it was like riding a bike, but the bike was, like, way too small, so I still knew how to do it, but I couldn't pick my knees up all the way, and it was just a really weird trip down memory lane. Hopping into that next picture, after finishing up the Glen Keane style. This is Don Bluth, so this is on the other side of things. While I spent a long time trying to emulate Disney was not my love when it came to animation. While I know that Glen Keane's art style leaves a bit to be desired, and his stories aren't all that great, Glen Keane movies were some I remember watching as a child, And they were what put that first love for animation and art in my heart. I remember watching Thumbelina and Anastasia and The Land Before Time and the American Tail movies, and just being in love with these creations. And it's some of the earliest memories I have for really being in love with art and knowing that that was something I wanted to pursue. So even if his style in particular wasn't one that really inspired me, his storytelling was one that definitely pushed me in the direction of where I am now. I will say, though, his art style was a pain in the butt to emulate. Everything I did, I felt like it just didn't look right. But I based my little doodle of me off of Thumbelina, because that was one of my favorite movies growing up. As bad as it was not a great movie. It was tacky and cliche and kind of racist, but I had such a big crush on Thumbelina, and it was fairies, and I loved fairies, so it was just, I was doomed from the start. I will say, because of this particular style, I had On the Road from Thumbelina stuck in my head for like the rest of the day. And then finishing that up, this one's a little bit of a silly one, so it's gonna go by fast, but I wanted to do a little Jim Henson thing, so I drew me as a little Muppet, just for funsies, because Jim Henson was another one like Don Bluth that really inspired me from a very early age to create. My mom was a puppeteer, so there was a lot of Jim Henson watching going on in my early life. We would watch The Muppet Show and all the Muppet movies and The Dark Crystal and The Labyrinth, all that jazz. And so from a very early age, that kind of content was just very instilled in me, and it was such a good message and all that jazz. Little Ree picked up a lot from watching this stuff as a kid. And I mean, even like growing up today and now and just learning about what a rad dude Jim Henson was, it makes a lot of sense knowing who I am now and how much of an influence that was in my younger life. So just a little fast shout out to Jim Henson, just for funsies. And then heading into this next one, this is... Oh, is this Irene? This is Irene. Okay, so fun little story. The very last person we're going to see in this video is Lindsay, because Lindsay has always been and will always be the main inspiration for my art. She is my muse. She's the one that introduced me to art. She is the best. But Irene Flores is kind of like Lindsay take two, because when Lindsay introduced me to art, it was because her uncle had gotten her one of Irene Flores' art books. She did shoujo fashion manga art school, and Lindsay had gotten the very first one and dragged me over to her house for a sleepover to draw from this book, because she was so in love with this art style. It matched her art style, and I'd always wanted to draw like Lindsay, so I was so pumped that there was like a tutorial on how to do it. And it was on that night that we both decided that we wanted to make movies. We planned out this whole trilogy. I think I've talked about this before, but it was such a pivotal moment growing up. It was that moment that I knew that this is what I wanted to do with my life. And so because of that, Irene Flores really taught me how to draw, just sitting there in Lindsay's bedroom with this book and a whole bunch of copy paper and colored pencils, just like copying every single picture in this book and then changing them up and mashing them together and getting everything we could out of this. It was such an influential part of Baby Ree's art journey that she definitely needed to be on this list. And it was really neat going back and revisiting this style, because when I was trying to emulate it, it was, the first style I really tried to copy, so it wasn't good. And so it was really nice getting to go back and relook at this art style and just seeing how far I've come. And like, I don't know, a lot of these, this was a very bizarre video for me to record, because some of it felt so good to revisit, and some of them felt like I was pulling my own hair out, and we're going to talk about one in particular when we get to it. Some of these art styles I left behind because they were more hindering me than helping me. Some of these we left behind because it was just the natural progression of things for me to keep growing and finding something new. And some of these, one in particular, I left because I couldn't handle being around it anymore. And we'll get to that. But there's one style in particular that is the reason this video is getting uploaded so late at night, because I had to walk away and come back to it about 20 times. It was not an easy one for me to do. But going to a lighter topic, this is Fuguri. I'm probably not saying that right, but that's okay. They were a deviant artist that I came across when I was first starting my whole DA time. And I fell in love with their art style. To this day, I'm not sure if they do it traditionally or digitally, but they have such a distinctive, just very crisp, clear art style and such wonderful line work that is honestly still an inspiration. And I think they were the first person that got the idea in my head that I should probably start messing around with things to see if I could find my own art style. And it was really cool just like looking back on their art. Their art is still so cool and so wonderful. If you haven't seen their work, which you probably have, I know they're a pretty noticeable artist, especially online, but if you haven't seen their work, I would highly encourage going to check it out. They have such just a wonderful grasp of like shapes and how to work them into their designs, and it's real good, especially their line work. I can't emphasize enough how much I love their line work. It's so good and just comforting, and I did not do it justice in this picture, but I did my best, and that's what counts. Heck, I didn't have enough to talk about for Fukuri. Fukuri was more somebody that inspired me in the heart of having a style, and not so much in I spent time emulating this style, which there's a couple artists like that, like Don Bluth and Jim Henson. But I will say, though, emulating the way they do shading was definitely a really good experience, since I'm doing a little bit of practice trying to get better into doing that like painty style. This was a really good exercise. That with Irene Flores and Sepida, heck, I'm not going to pronounce their name right no matter how hard I try, but Sepida Bunyapen, their ways of shading are just so good and so nice and smooth and painty and artsy and wonderful, and I loved it. And it was such a great opportunity to get to try and just practice it. And we're gonna see some more of that painty style being practiced on like the relearns, because that's something I want to get better at. It's been on my to-do list for a while, and I've just been avoiding it like the plague because I didn't know where to start. But 2018 is the year we stick it to the man, we stick it to that gosh darn little voice inside of me that's saying don't touch it, and we're gonna touch it so good. We're gonna get all that practice going. And here we are heading into the next one. These are big old eyes. Who are you? Normally I remember by the time I do the eyes, but I'm not remembering. Oh, this is Sepida. So it's Sepita or Sepitha. I don't know how their name is pronounced, and I feel really, really bad, but they wrote another art book. That was one I found a couple years after Lindsay introduced me to Irene Flores. They were put out by the same publishing company, Super Manga Art School, something like that, but it was a whole book on how to color specifically with Copics, and I got this book right after I bought my first Copics, which was like this huge investment for me, and I was so happy because I paid for it all by myself, and I was really excited because it was like, you know, me stepping forward as an artist. And so I just spent so much time looking at this book and not just learning, you know, how they use colors and stuff, but also how they draw. They have some gorgeous costume design, and they do a lot of like Avengers fan art, so if you're into that, I would highly recommend checking them out. Please check out all these artists. I can't emphasize this enough. They are all really, really talented and really great at what they do, and they have such great distinctive styles, and I love them all so much. But Sepida was just another artist who meant a ton to me as I was developing my art style, because they were somebody that I followed a lot during a very pivotal moment in my development. And there was a little bit of a pause there because I forgot to unpause. I was trying to multitask, and I was doing some research for a not quite D&D campaign that I'm considering running, and because of that I was a little distracted. But we're just heading in there with actually a marker brush that I got that Metabang had that ended up working surprisingly well. I wasn't sure if it was actually going to work out for the textures I needed, but it went pretty well, which was nice to know because I really enjoy like looks like this, and I haven't really had the time to practice, like get back into the hang of using markers and stuff and doing traditional art, which is something we're going to be seeing a lot more of in relearns as soon as I can get a better recording setup for that kind of thing. And then finishing that up. Yep, here we go. This was the hard one. So this is Monty Ohm. Monty Ohm was what happened just before my Yogs phase. He was a huge inspiration to me, art-wise and personality-wise and determination-wise. He made me feel like I could actually make it in this industry, because he was this guy who like taught himself and was so good and determined and encouraging about what he did. And I was huge into RWBY, I was huge into Red vs. Blue. I followed everything he did, and I loved watching his content. And then, for those of you who don't know, Monty Ohm passed away suddenly. Nobody was really expecting it. I definitely wasn't expecting it, and it hit me crazy hard, and there was such a long time where I couldn't make myself draw. And to this day, I have a hard time going back and watching the content Monty made while he was alive, because as much as he was an inspiration to me, I have a really hard time with death, and he was such an inspiration for me. It's hard accepting that he's not in the world anymore. But in these kinds of things, it's just, we gotta be grateful for the good they did and let it push us to make more good. And this was the reason this video is so late. I kept trying to accomplish this. I kept trying to, you know, do this style, but every time I would look at his art, I'd just have to like walk away. Which is, you know, something I need to work on with me. But it was a rough one, but we made it. And it was good to revisit it. I feel like I'm a little stronger for it. And then finally, I'm copying Lindsay's art style, because like I said, she is the beginning and the end. She's the one that got me into art. She's the one that keeps me doing art. She's so encouraging and wonderful, and here sometime soon we're gonna have her on these videos, and y'all are gonna get to hear her lovely voice, and it's gonna be great. And I accidentally forgot to unpause for her bit, so we're just gonna go ahead and pull up that final illustration. And I'm noticing as I'm doing that the timeline for the video ended a while ago, which means you're getting all this commentary a little late because my recording software messed up again, which I would try and fix, but I know from last time that it's just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again, and honestly this video is going to be late enough as it is. So you're getting all this commentary a little bit late, and I'm sorry about that, but you've got that finished image up so you can see what I'm talking about while I'm talking about it. So yeah, sorry about that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'm just going to go ahead and wrap this up because this video is already going long, but I really appreciate you watching all the way through, if you have watched all the way through, which is, you know, the only way you would be listening to me unless you cut to the end. But thank you so much for watching. If you want to try the 20 Styles challenge, I highly encourage it. It was a really great walk down memory lane and a really good challenge, and I was gonna say something else, but my brain just died on me. I guess that's karma. Oh, please go check out these artists. The links to all of the artists or series that were featured in this video are in the description down below. Please go check them out. You won't regret it. I love and highly recommend all of these artists. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a great day. I hope you're gonna have a great day tomorrow, and until I see you guys again, I love you. Bye-bye.